The weather. What's interesting about the weather? Why do people ask you when they come in? Why do they say things like, "It's terrible.
It's really cold out there.
It's terrible weather we've been having recently," or they say, "It's bad. It's a horrible day." Just because, does the weather being bad make it a horrible day? So, if that and more thrilling news on episode 120 of the Scottish Liberty Podcast.
120, who'd have thunk it? And it's a very special episode today because it's somebody's birthday.
Whose? Oh, it's mine.
Oh, as if he didn't know.
Whose
birthday? Oh, I forgot all about the birthday.
I forgot all about it. Yeah, with me, Antony Sammeroff, I've officially turned XDX today. And I never thought I'd reach the age of XDX, but that's the age I am.
Yeah. And
I'm taking a break out of my usual schedule of, I don't know, birthday threesomes to make this broadcast.
Birthday threesomes?
Yeah, that's my usual. That's my usual.
What happens at a birthday threesome?
Well, two girls have sex with you at the same time, just the same as any other threesome, except for it's on your birthday.
That's where I've been going wrong with my threesomes then.
Well, yeah, I guess it's not necessarily two girls and a guy in a threesome now, is it? A devil's threesome, they call it. Have you ever participated in a devil's threesome?
I may have, unbeknownst to me. Yeah. Would I remember it if I had?
I refuse to answer the question.
Okay.
So we've got some interesting stuff. I think it's interesting. Whether you guys at home think it's, well, you probably think it's interesting since you tune into the show on the reg.
Let's start with the weather.
Right. Something that isn't. Shall I share screens for this?
Why not? It saves them looking at our ugly mugs.
Well, I know a lot of you guys. You start talking. I'll do screen sharing.
Well, a lot of Americans, particularly, and even other Europeans, are completely and utterly flummoxed, baffled, and even bamboozled by the British obsession with the weather. Right? It's like, what the, and the first thing I can say about that is, well, we live in an island that's in the middle of, I don't know, about 3 or 4, maybe 5, maybe even as much as 5 different weather systems all swirling around. So it's very changeable. Things are unpredictable, not quite like you would have, when you go to places like Austria, Germany, most of continental Europe, the weather's pretty much predictable. But here in the UK, it's very, very changeable. And it's a really old, time-honoured British talking point, the weather, and it's small talk as well.
I used to work in a newsagent, and do they call it newsagent in the States?
They'd probably call it a drugstore or something. I don't know.
Just basically the kind of place where you get your paper, your newspaper, and you get snacks. The fake news agent. Well, I thought I was still kind of lefty at the time, although I think it was on my journey to libertarianism, and I thought philosophically, I don't really believe in the products we sell here, so I'm going to make it my job to brighten up people's day. And in some new age audio program, I heard someone say, "It's not a horrible day, it's just a wet day." So I annoyed people by when they came in with their umbrellas and it was pouring, they're like, "Oh, it's a horrible day today." And I'd say, "There's no such thing as a horrible day, just a wet one." And one time a woman came in and she said, "It's a wet day today." And I was like, and she was like, when you first told me that, I thought it was really weird, but I thought about it and then I said it to my daughter and now I really like it. I always say it to myself. So I brought some warmth into her cold Scottish winter.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. That's
a good anecdote.
So I wouldn't open up with it if I was you, if you're doing any talks or anything like that. But anyhow, the one of the things that really baffles foreigners here is actually the news obsession with the weather. It's like it's in newspapers, it's on the TV. They actually ask people to send in pictures of where they are, what the weather's like, and the constant disruption. A little bit of snow. I mean, we don't get snow here, not really. Russia gets snow.
More
Sweden gets snow.
When I was a kid,
yeah, but we don't get it like there'll be places in America where you will really get snow. Canada gets snow. Like I say, Scandinavia gets snow. Finland gets snow. Britain really doesn't get snow the way these countries do, but yet we get a flurry of it, and it's chaos. You know, trains are disrupted, roads are disrupted, people can't get to their work, people's heating goes off, you know, and that is what gives. And I think it's because we don't really, all our weather combating agencies are on such a shoestring budget. Like they're loath to like prepare, because that costs a lot of money. So they're sitting with their fingers crossed, thinking, let's hope we get through this winter without having to spend anything. And it always catches us out. It really always catches us out.
Because they're so obsessed with the weather that you've got this story, Osborne on Brexit and UK ice and snow disruption. It's like they have to tie everything, including, it's because people voted to leave the EU that we have
we're getting this bad weather.
Bad weather. Yeah. That's what it is. Those right wingers voting in favour of Brexit, it's their fault.
The Brexit delay is likely. That's probably delayed due to the weather.
Yeah, it's probably delayed during, like, you know, see when you go on like ScotRail, we've got these ScotFail, as people like to call it. That's our sort of quasi-nationalised rail service.
It's that public-private partnership thing again.
Yeah. They've got this like report sign that says report anything suspicious. I called up and I was like, a train was fucking on time, man. Very suspicious. So that is
I mean, that said, the trains are, I think, better now than they used to be when I was a kid, when it was nationalised, you know, but that's a matter for debate. The whole weather thing here in the UK is a puzzle to most foreigners. It's just something people like to talk about here, and it's something that the media are obsessed with. I mean, especially because it's better than talking about real things that actually affect people. It's better than maybe, you know, telling people the truth about what's actually happening. It's better than discussing the national debt. It's better than discussing the fact that, you know, that we're in debt to trillions of pounds that we'll probably never be able to get back from. It's better than discussing the fact that our army is in disarray, that our navy's in disarray. You know, we've got aircraft carriers that the planes can't actually land on. All that kind of stuff. It's better to stick to the weather.
Iraq and Afghanistan. Which we could, but do you know what's quite interesting? It's like it reminds me of that Tears for Fears song "Head Over Heels," where he goes, "I wanted to be with you alone and talk about the weather." It is very British, but is that really what he wants to do when he gets her alone? Like,
probably, yeah. Again, you know, it's a very British thing, you know.
Because that's not what I would be thinking.
Moving on, as Stevie Ray Vaughan would say, just can't stand the weather, so let's get away from it.
Or as Wet said, everywhere you go, always take the wet. No, that was Crowded House.
Crowded House, you mean?
How did I manage that? It would be more sensible if it was Wet. It was just a wet weather.
One of them was a terrible band, and the other one's actually quite a decent band.
I love Crowded House. Yeah, Wet were pretty gash. They were pretty. Do they know Wet in America? Were they just famous here, or were they famous worldwide?
I think because they done that. Was it 4 Weddings and a Funeral?
All right.
They done the "I Feel It in My Fingers."
Oh yeah.
That wasn't even their song. Was
it?
No,
but it was their best song, and it wasn't. They didn't even write it.
And Marty Pellow, talk about punchable faces. Marty Pellow, who was the lead singer. I don't even know if he's a nice guy, horrible guy. I have no idea, but he had an extremely punchable face. He constantly felt the need to grin inanely while he was singing.
And he is from Scotland, by the way, which is. Interesting to mention. The band I actually saw him in a musical. There was a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde musical, and I went there. And the really funny thing is, so many of the songs in it had the word evil in it, and every time he sung the word evil, he pointed down at his bot crotch. And I really wanted to. I went to review it. I was sent to review it by a publication that I was writing for. I really wanted to call my review Marty Pellow's Evil Balls. It's a pretty good show today.
Okay, so from Marty Pellow's punchable coupon face, if you like, to another one.
Tell us about this MAGA hat wearing.
This MAGA hat wearing fiend. Okay. CNN, that paragon of, you know, worthy news sources, basically started a dogpile on an American teenager.
According to Slate, this teenager harassed a Native American veteran.
Yeah, it's just not true. Here's the bottom line. Okay, the narrative was this, that this guy, Phillips, who was an American Indian, okay? Yeah, I did say American Indian. So if it's good enough for the American Indian movement, who are a civil rights movement for American Indians, who was, you know, Russell Means. I don't know if anybody has heard of him. He was in the movie. He played Chingachgook in the movie Last of the Mohicans, the modern movie with Daniel Day-Lewis. And he was a rights activist and a libertarian, ran for the American Libertarian Party. Dead now. I know he kind of fell out with the American Indian movement at some point, and they don't like to associate themselves with them. I think it was infighting. But anyway, American Indian movement. So this guy decides, apparently what happened was all these youths, the youths from a Catholic school in America, mainly boys, don't know if there was any girls there. I think it was a boys' school. They were at this monument for the veterans, and the Indian guy who says he's a veteran himself, a Vietnam veteran, goes there to perform an Indian ritual for the departed, who happened to have also been Native Americans or American Indians. So he was apparently there, and suddenly these youths started to pillory him and mock him and shout things like "build that wall, build that wall."
Jesus,
and
why?
And all that. But this is the narrative, okay? And then apparently they blocked his path to the National Monument and started to pillory him more, and one of them threw a beer can and all this kind of jazz. Subsequently, it turns out when you look at the whole story of what happened, it was nothing remotely resembling that. The first thing that started the whole thing was there was a group there who called themselves the Black Hebrew movement. Yeah.
That's what I heard about that.
It's like, what can you do? I'm black and I'm oppressed. How do I make myself less oppressed? I know I'll be a Jew as well as a black guy, right? You know, that's really going to help. But anyway,
go all three. Why don't you become gay as well? I'm a gay black Jew.
Yeah, and so anyway, so these guys were
conservative. I'm a gay black Jew. Conservative.
That would really turn people
Conservatives off. Should be considered to be a
minority group.
A minority group, and also oppressed because
they are.
Because you're hated for it.
Well, this boy is certainly hated. So there was a group there calling themselves the Black Hebrew movement or whatever, and they're I would call them a cult.
You shouldn't laugh, but
I'm laughing. Like, I would call them a cult. They've got some very strange beliefs, and they don't have a centralized authority. So
how can it be a cult then?
Yeah, their beliefs are cultish. I don't know, but anyway, there are certainly groups of them that are vehemently anti-white. They believe that white people are the devil, and they started pillorying the young Catholic boys. And they were shouting things like, your president's a paedophile, he's a homosexual. And by the way, they started pillorying the Native American guy, the American Indian guy. They started shouting things like, and they had their King James Bible out, and they were saying, you lost your nation, you lost your country to the white man because you were worshipping the totem pole. You lost your country because you weren't worshipping the true God, right? And they were shouting this at the Native American guy, and they were shouting it at the white guys. And there was a black kid in amongst the white kids, and he came forward to remonstrate with these guys, and they called him an Uncle Tom, and all that kind of jazz, right? So these guys were really kicking off. Now there was no violence at any point in this thing, but it was just all verbal altercations. At some point, this guy Phillips, who was the American Indian guy, started to chant the American Indian movement anthem and bang a drum. And the young guys all sort of joined in chanting their school song, which apparently is very similar, got a similar beat, you know. And they're all sort of like boogieing down and getting with it. And this guy, the veteran, moves what you can you can see this on video, clearly walks towards them banging the drum. Now, his way to the monument was not impeded at any point. He could have walked to the monument, but he didn't. He walked right into the centre of this crowd of kids. And the kids were all pretty much good-natured about it. They were laughing. They weren't laughing at the guy. They were just laughing, having a good time and jumping around to the guy beating the drum. So the guy gets the guy beating the drum gets right up in the teen's face and beats the drum in the face. Now the kid just stands there and, in my view, shows remarkable restraint and just kind of like smiles, because it's an awkward situation. So it's like, it's not, I don't think it's a smug smile. It's kind of like an awkward smile.
In this picture, he does look smug as fuck. But the thing is, you can make anyone look like anything if you just
if you take the right picture. Exactly. Some pictures can even make me look handsome. So let's not rely on that. Now, some of these kids were wearing Make America Great caps, which obviously means that the devil from the get-go. Yeah, they're fascists, they're Nazis. And a lot of them had been to the pro-life rally that Ben Shapiro had been at, the one that Mike Pence spoke at over the internet. I don't think he was actually there in person. So they'd all been there, and they took time out to go and visit this monument. At no point in 2 hours of footage that you can watch, at no point do you see any of these kids or hear any of these kids shout, "Build that wall, build that wall."
Although if they did, it would be pretty fucking funny.
Yeah, well, even if they did, so what? But so it turns out that red man speak with forked tongue, right? He told lies.
You can't call him red man.
Well, they say that it's an old saying: "White man speak with forked tongue." Right? Okay, right. So
I'm still racist.
Okay, whatever. Like, slightly brown but not quite brown guy, right? Speak with forked tongue. And CNN jumped on this story, didn't check any facts, because who cares, really? Didn't check the rest of the footage, just ladled in, and then there was a dog pile and a feeding frenzy on these kids. They were being denounced. The kid who was in the picture that you saw that Antony put up they're telling, a lot of you Americans will know this story better than us here in the UK, but the kid got doxxed, his family got threatened, and it's been a pretty bad week for that kid and some of those kids. And they're even talk about that he should be, because he's doing a chef's course, this kid, right. And there's talk that he should be kicked off it and all this. Now, if it wasn't bad enough that the leftists were piling into this kid on the internet and saying he had a punchable face and saying that, he's a Nazi and the usual crap that they throw at people, and doxing them and saying he should be kicked out of school, and all sorts of horrible stuff that the leftists were dishing out. As if that wasn't bad enough, even people on the right started to pile in. And this is before anybody bothered to check any facts and denounce him and the rest of these kids.
What were the right saying about it?
And none of it was true. Well, there was. I can't give you a name, and I should have researched this. But
are you talking about that libertarian? I don't. If it is him, I don't want him. He's not on the right, but I don't want him to be named because he's a dick, and I don't want to give him any.
No, I don't think it was even a libertarian. I think it was some people in the conservative who are known in the conservative sphere who piled in and said things like, "Well, we have nothing to do with this. This is the ugly side of Trumpism and all this." And again, nobody bothered to just do some homework and check. The video footage was available, 2 hours of it. You can see who's clearly at fault. You can clearly see who was and wasn't the provocateurs. And at the end of the day, these boys.
What were they doing there, though?
Who were
the boys? Why were they even there?
Well, they were meant to visit, pay their respects. It was kind of like a monument.
Right.
It's a national monument, And
what I was going to say is there is a libertarian who shall not be named, but let's say he's got a history of cuckoldry, and he's one of these virtue signaling libertarians that fought with Tom Woods. We might have mentioned him in our show. Libertarian Uncle Tom's taunt Libertarian Uncle Tom Woods, who did actually go on Facebook and post, "I'm a very non-violent person, blah, 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 blah. But if anyone has a punchable face, it's that teenager."
Right.
And it's just like, he's always on the wrong side of history. He's one of these ones that likes to suck up.
Yeah. So not only do I think that this kid is not a villain, I think he's a bit of a, I think he handled himself pretty well. He just stood there. He didn't give any ground, but he didn't do anything provocative. He didn't make any smart comments that I could see. He didn't really get angry. All he did was smile. And I think it's more an awkward kind of smile as opposed to anything else. I mean, there's a guy banging a drum and, right in your face, kind of roaring medicine bullshit in the face. I'm sorry. That's what I saw. And by the way, I would call myself a person who's very sympathetic to the plight of the Native American Indian. Like, they are a people who the American government consistently broke treaties with, and dishonored and their property rights, disrespected their property rights, hounded them off of land. A lot of
the America's policy, because they won't actually let the Native Americans have proper property rights and the so-called reservations. Do we need reservations? No, we'll just turn up, and if we say anything wrong, someone will put us right afterwards. What I would say is, like, because of that, they're kind of strongly incentivized to just put casinos on them, and and basically there's a lot of ill health and addiction in Native American communities and things like that. They don't really have that much autonomy. Even Reason, I think, had a great video on it with a Native American talking about how their lack of property rights didn't allow them to develop properly.
Yeah, I mean, without property rights, there are no rights, really. I think I don't think you can stress the importance of property rights enough.
They have a bad rep, but even your right to your life is predicated on the idea that your life is your property.
Self-ownership. So I'm one who has a lot of sympathy for their position and for their plight, but this guy, it looks. All the evidence suggests from the video that he either lied or exaggerated or both, and I don't think that helps anybody's cause. And as for being a veteran, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I would like to know if there's anybody out there who knows anybody from, who's in the Vietnam Veterans Association. You can maybe do a bit of research on this guy and find out exactly what kind of veteran he was. Because the thing about the Vietnam War, not a lot of people know this, and I don't mean to disrespect anybody who served over there. Of all the, let's say, hundreds of thousands of combat troops or troops who served in Vietnam, the overwhelming majority of troops that served there were what you would call, in the parlance of the military, REMFs, right? Rear echelon motherfuckers. They were in the rear with the gear. There were guys who drove forklifts, guys who, drove trucks and, done the resupply and all that. So that was the vast majority. It was the minority who were actually combat troops, up to their knees in, paddy water, getting bit to death with, ticks and mosquitoes, and had, Victor Charles coming down, mortaring them and blowing them away. That was the minority. So there's veterans and there's veterans. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be quick to disparage this guy, but I would like to just do a little bit of research and find out just what this guy's role was and what his history was. Because as I say, I'm not disparaging his culture. I'm not disparaging the case that would be made.
Him as an individual.
As an individual, he's gone down. And well, I didn't have any estimation from him because I didn't know him. But he's the very fact that I mean, why did he choose him? He didn't bang his drum in the face of the Black Israelites, the Black Hebrew movement. He didn't bang his drum in their face. They were the people that were saying, you deserve to get your country taken off you because you worshipped the totem pole.
Right.
And you can see this in video. He didn't mix it up with them. He decided to walk in amongst the teenagers and bang a drum in their face. So, T-Rex style.
He didn't even... So, lots of music references in today's show.
Absolutely. So I think this guy is the anti-Cuck, this young boy.
Like the Antichrist, but Cuck.
Yeah, he's the anti-Cuck. I think he's a bit of a hero for standing his ground and not losing his shit when this guy was banging the drum in his face. And with all the crap that's been coming his way from adults who should know better, right? The kid is about 16 years old, okay? And I'm calling him a kid.
He looks a bit older than that.
I'm calling him a kid because I know in the States, I mean, you can't have a drink to your age. You're officially, you know, legally, you're regarded as a child at 16. Here in Scotland, you can get married
at 16.
At 16, you can have a job at 16, and you can even vote.
You can go into the army.
You can go in the army. You can't serve in the front line, but you can. There's all sorts of things that where you're treated as an adult at 16, but apparently you can't have a drink at your own wedding because that's, you know, you're old enough to make a life-changing decision. You're old enough to change the destiny of a nation through the vote, but you can't decide to have a drink. So that's the insanity we live in Scotland. So that's why I'm calling the guy a kid. I mean, he is a kid. What do you know really at that age, at 16? So fair play to him. I'm giving him my vocal support anyway. Well done, kid. You are our anti-cuck of the year so far. But from anti-cucks to cucks.
From anti-cucks to cucks. We are not impressed with Tucker, also known as Cucker, Carlson, and his anti-capitalist rhetoric.
What has happened
he reminds
to Tucker
me,
Carlson?
well, he was never, I'd say he was never really a fully fledged libertarian, but he said he was very libertarian at one stage in his life.
I think what gets me with Tucker Carlson, he's always got that, he's got that permanent look on his face, like puzzlement.
Yeah,
somebody described it as a bear trying to work out how to get in the bee's hive. You know?
But it's what it is it's a way of discrediting your guest without actually making any arguments. Because if you look at your guest, like, are you crazy? What that communicates to the audience is that the guest's position is crazy without you actually. It's an argument without an argument.
However, I think it's safe to say that we have like
he's taken some
kind of still do,
but he's got no principles.
Well, I'm sure he's got
I guess he's family values is not a fucking principle.
Yeah.
Like, it's just an opinion on what people should value.
And I think what happened? Well, okay. Well, you talk about what you've seen on the Ben Shapiro show with Tucker Carlson.
That would be to rewind more recently, and not that recently. It's a couple of weeks behind. He gave a spiel. He gave a talk which got a lot of accolade because it was eloquent rather than because it made sense. Basically saying that the economy, basically saying lefty shit, like the economy should be run for people. I guess you could say it's righty shit, because if you look at the rhetoric of fascist regimes, it was also the idea that business should be run in the service of the nation, of the people. And just the same way, like, basically the left have their idea of stuff should be there to serve the people, and the right wants it to serve the nation, whatever that is. And they're really just collectives. They're different names for collectives. So the national interest is what the right love, and the interest of the common man is what the left love. But it makes no sense, because there's only individuals, and there's no such thing as a national interest, right? What's beneficial for you might not be beneficial for me. How do we come to what the national interest is? There's too many people involved. There's too many factors. Any policy is going to benefit some individuals and some others and harm others. Yeah. But he is presenting this idea that there is such a thing as a national interest.
I guess you've got to sort of personify the nation. You've got to go, well, the nation is an entity. The queen is the you know, the embodiment of the nation. Or there's just a personification in some way. You go, like, you talk about the nation in the abstract, like it's something, a living entity in of itself, and there's things that benefit it and things that don't benefit it.
And you can't. I don't think that holds up to the scrutiny of reason, because right, supposing this gives you 10, this policy gives you 10 happiness, but it gives me -6 happiness. Like, there's no way to measure happiness. Like, how do we even say, well, maybe you should be less happy than I am because, say, you're a criminal. Yeah, like there's too many factors involved to actually create any coherent concept of a collective interest. But he is a collectivist. He's a right-wing collectivist, and he's presenting the idea that the economy should serve people, not people serve the economy. Again, a very left-wing soundbite, and that and I agree. But no one, I agree that...
I agree with that.
Yeah, that economics isn't the all, and like, but how much do you want out of the economy? Do you want the economy to be like sucking your dick or wiping your ass? Like the purpose of the economy is the exchange of goods and services, and a free market pushes down the price of goods and services to make them more available, so you've got more time to spend with your family, you've got more time to spend with your friends, you've got more time to pursue your hobbies, because you need to work less to pay the bills. But sorry, I've been...
Do you think that... I mean, I get the impression that there's a lot of people on the right who... It's a form of virtue signalling or dog whistling to people on the left that they think...
I don't think that's what...
Well, hang on a second. What they're doing is they're saying, look, I know there's problems over here on the right, but see me, I care.
Yeah.
I really care. I care about people, and I care about people's plight, and I care about them losing their job and stuff. I'm a caring person. I get it. You get those guys, those other guys on the right that don't care, and they're nasty capitalists. I'm not one of the nasty capitalists. Yeah. I'm just a freedom-loving conservative, and I think they're making some sort of appeal to whoever might be reasonable on the left.
But I don't think...
And I don't think it works. I think they dislike you anyway, most of them. And that kind of virtue signaling, that's sending out a signal to people, like-minded people on the left.
They'll just push the line.
Yeah. They'll just pile in even more on you, I think.
If you give them an inch, then they want to renegotiate another inch. Yeah. But the
give
thing
them
is,
a leg to stand on, they'll boot you in the ass with it.
There's neocons like David Frum, who I think...
Where's he from?
Do what you're talking about. I don't think that's what Tucker Carlson is doing. He's definitely speaking to the Trump MAGA hat wearing, machines took our jobs, foreigners took our jobs. That's who he's dog whistling to. And he's trying to validate their collectivism by saying family values are more important than the economy. The thing is, those people are defined not by their own values, they're defined by hatred of the left. They don't have a coherent philosophy, in my opinion, and they are also tempted by the fruits of collectivism, by redistribution, by subsidies, by all the benefits that the state has to give you. They just don't want to be on the left. So even though they want a ton of the stuff that the left want, they just don't like social justice warriors. They just don't want like Venezuela type socialism, and they just know that they fucking hate pussies that are
they're kind of hyper patriots.
And I think it's really a bad idea, and this is a problem that I have with the right in general, at least for several decades, which is they allow themselves to be defined by what they're not. I think that's a big mistake, and it's one of the things I love about libertarianism. We have a coherent philosophy, and we're defined by our love of liberty, and we are not reacting. Now we talk about the left a lot, but see if we were here in the 80s. Okay, I know that you were a fan of Maggie Thatcher, fine, but if we were doing this show in the 80s, we'd probably have a lot of problems with conservatives at the time,
for sure,
especially with their social conservatism, which and also
family values,
but imposing that on other people through the law. We will have had problems,
and not even been very good at it themselves.
Right? We would have had problems with their record on civil liberties. We would have had problems with their
free speech.
They were bad on free speech. We would have had problems with their tendency towards foreign interventions. It just happens to be that at this point in history, I think the left are the major threat to liberty. And that's why we talk about them more. But that could change, especially I don't know, especially with more of the kind of talk that Tucker Carlson's doing, which makes him sound reasonable. But actually, if you go into the reads and pick apart what he's saying, it basically amounts to the government should be allowed to intervene in the economy. Well, once you state that as a principle because you think that the right government, and I say right ambiguously, the right-wing government will use that power for evil, you're going to hand on, for good, you're going to hand on that power to a left-wing government that's going to use the same power. So they've got no principle. You have to have opposing a policy for the wrong reason is not good enough.
I mean, I would have understood. I'm not saying I'd necessarily regret, but I can get it if people go, look, I'm not entirely comfortable with the idea of like 20, 30 tons of truck, you know, steaming down the highway at 55 miles an hour with nobody in it. It's just been driven by a computer. I can understand why people would be concerned about that. And if Tucker Carlson said, well, look, I don't think these things are anywhere near ready for that.
That's not what he's saying.
But that's not what he's saying. And the Teamsters opposed it, the big trucking union in the United States. Of course they would. They opposed it because they don't want their drivers. They're supposed to represent drivers. They want the drivers laid off. I don't think the technology is anywhere near ready yet.
It will be. It will be. And here's the thing. So if you take a leftist who goes on TV and says, I think that marijuana should be legalized because blah blah. Right. But I don't think other drugs should be legalized. The thing is, it's not important what policies people advocate. It's the principle. Are they promoting it because it promotes personal liberty? If you don't support the policy because on libertarian grounds, it doesn't matter what your justification is because you're not actually opening the door to the kind of society that we want. Tucker Carlson was on Ben Shapiro's show when Ben Shapiro said, you'd ban these self-driving trucks, and he did that face that you were talking about before that, and he went, sorry, I'm doing it for people on YouTube. He was like,
more quizzical than that. It's more kind
of... He's like, are you kidding? In a second. In a second. Like, and it's like, okay, what gives you the right, Mr. Commissar, to ban them?
And don't you think that Ben Shapiro was really easy on him?
Weak. He was so weak. He gave him some lame-ass response.
I think he was taken aback by it, though.
Maybe that's what it was. He gave some lame-ass response.
And also, I think he's got a certain amount of respect for Tucker Carlson as well.
He does, but I've got a certain amount. But if we had him on this show, I'd debate him on it. And the thing is, he gave some lame. Ben Shapiro always ends up appealing to religion, which really annoys me. It's fine if you're religious. Yeah, but that's not a justification. Your justifications need to be secular and rational. Because otherwise they don't have universal appeal. You can only be talking to people who accept your premises if you make an appeal to religiosity.
Right. Okay.
So as a secular person, you're not going to talk me into having self-driving trucks based on an appeal to religion. However, what I'd say is, it might be obvious to you guys, but it sure doesn't seem to be obvious to Tucker Carlson. It's like, see if self-driving trucks come on the road, everything in the shops is going to be much cheaper because you don't have to pay those labor costs. Which means, you know, if this cup of coffee costs 80 cents instead of $1, that means you've got 20 cents more to go out and spend on something else that will put someone else in a job.
It's worth mentioning that in the immediate, I think what annoys some people is people dismiss it as if it's not going to cause unemployment. Of course it will. And in the short term, it definitely will. But you're not entitled to a job.
You're not. And the solution to it is to free market so that it's easy. Get rid of all the labor laws, get rid of the minimum wage, or at least make a permanent minimum wage freeze, because the minimum wage here is going up this year, or has gone up this year. And what it means is it's going to be harder for people to get a job.
Yeah.
You know, basically because they're going to come out of the trucking industry.
I mean, one of the main reasons,
less jobs for them.
One of the main reasons they're looking to do these trucks is, like you say, it's going to be cheaper. If there wasn't a minimum wage, then perhaps they wouldn't be so keen to go for driverless trucks because it'd be cheaper to actually have a human being driving it.
I think that truckers actually earn significantly more than the minimum wage. But
yeah, of course they do.
So they're not an affected demographic.
It's market, yeah. Okay.
But having that being said, you don't know how much cheaper everything would be, because see, if you maybe the warehouse attendant that loads the truck on is paid minimum wage.
Yeah.
Which means if he was getting a little bit less than that, there'd be more money to pay the trucker, for example. Yeah. The economy is really complicated.
Yeah.
So I'm disappointed with Tucker Carlson, but I'm not surprised because he was never a libertarian. And all of these right-wingers that like to masquerade as libertarians to get libertarians on the Trump train, I think
they make libertarian noises.
Yes, but they've got no principles, so you can't trust someone that doesn't have, or at least they don't share our principles. So if they don't share, if they don't share a zest for liberty and voluntarism, essentially, you can't trust them. They will throw you under the bus as soon as they've got a higher value.
And a driverless bus at that.
That's really good. That is really good. Do you have anything more to say on Cucker Carlson other than Tucker Carlson? You are cock-a-doodle-doo
for this episode, anyway, and of the week. So, but the year is young, and I'm sure you'll be beaten down into, I don't know, 100th place by the end of the year.
Well, he is. I suggest
there,
you listen to his talk, and because where was the argument?
I think there's also an argument, an article on Lou Rockwell's page where they dissect a lot of what Tucker Carlson's been saying over the last year.
It is pure, but listen to it because it's an interesting study, because this has been lauded. I've even seen libertarians going, "Oh, Tucker Carlson is like just a gem in the mainstream media." Listen to it and tell me where the arguments are, right? Yeah. It's all rhetoric. It's all flurry language, and it appeals to emotion. There is no logic, none. There's no arguments in it. So tell me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, Anthony. You're just an asshole.
Okay. Right, so. Anything else? Yes, you got one more news story, and I've got some news, some big news.
Big news for all you people. This is the Metro. It's actually old news. It's a Metro newspaper, which is a sort of local free newspaper, and this is from Monday, January the 21st, and the story goes thus. The headline is "Sex Assault Soldier, quote, let off because she's female."
She got a pussy pass.
Apparently she got the pussy pass. Trooper Corey Alice Holmes, tried to kiss a male colleague when she returned to barracks after a night out. Army sources have said.
That's hardly sexual harassment.
Well, this is going to stick with it. It's going to, a female soldier who rubbed her body against it. I mean, there she looks. I mean, would you object if she tried to kiss you?
As long as we can do a army cosplay.
Okay, yeah. Well, she's got the uniform on. A female soldier who rubbed her body. Okay, and of course, just because I or Antony might not object doesn't mean somebody else can't object.
Yeah, they're allowed to object.
A female soldier who rubbed her body against a male colleague and tried to kiss him has been disciplined for sex assault. Trooper Corey Alice Holmes, 25, a private in the household cavalry. Well, there goes the neighbourhood. I'm sorry, but what the flying is a woman doing in the household cavalry? There you go. Let's see the shit I get for that one.
None from our audience.
A private.
What is household cavalry?
Household cavalry.
She's not riding a horse.
Senior regiment in the British Army. They are an amalgamation of the Blues and Royals. In fact, she's actually in the Blues and Royals, which is Prince Harry's regiment. They are cavalry regiment, which means they're now armoured.
So they ride horses?
They do ride horses, and they do ceremonial duty. They do troop in the colour, all that kind of thing.
See, I'm not bothered about her being in the household cavalry. It's the fact you said she's in a senior position. What's a woman doing in a senior position?
She's not a senior position, she's in a senior regiment, right? Okay. But so they are the top regiment in the British Army in terms of seniority. Because they're cavalry and because they're household troops, personal troops of the sovereign. So anyway, but it's news to me that women were in there now. I never knew that. I thought maybe she was attached personnel or something like that. You know, maybe a cook or a tailor or something. Sorry, but anyway, no. Apparently she's a warrior. So anyway, next day she was hauled before top brass in the regiment, which Princess William and Harry belonged to, and warned her she would be kicked out if there was any further misconduct. But outraged male colleagues tipped off the military police because they thought she had been let off too lightly. They claimed any male soldier who did the same to a female colleague would have been sent to military prison and booted out of the service. Well, military prison at Colchester ain't no joke, I'll tell you that. A source at Cumbermere Barracks, Windsor, been there, told the Mail on Sunday the male soldier was lying on a bed in the guard room. She leant over him, placing her arms either side of his head, basically pinning him down. He asked her to leave him alone, but she carried on. Okay, well then that is... They then went outside and she was seen rubbing herself against him and trying to kiss him. He called out, "Help me!" Like, it's just the kind of guys we've got in the army these days, I'm sorry. Eventually the guard commander told her she had been drinking, right? The blokes felt she had really been let off lightly, and if one of them had done it to a woman, they'd have been in huge trouble, which is probably true, right? It is true. When military police arrived to launch a criminal investigation, the male soldier told them he was prepared to accept his senior officer's rulings. Official sources said the incident last Sunday was dealt with appropriately. The army said it takes such complaints, quote, very seriously. Last year, a private who groped a female officer in a nightclub when both were drunk was jailed for 9 months. And that's a grope, not a kiss, right? But you don't know the extent of the grope. You know, I don't know whether it was obviously all groping serious, but I don't know if he stuck his hand right up her, you know, like a veterinary surgeon. Grabbed her head. Or whatever. You know. They were both. He was jailed for 9 months by a military court and then dismissed from the service. Wow. Groping is slightly different.
The argument is, I think the argument in favour of this would be, well, women are more vulnerable than men are.
Then what's she doing in uniform?
Well, there's a great argument.
You wouldn't be putting kids
sexually
in uniform.
vulnerable, more vulnerable sexually. Well,
why? Okay, then surely the army has a duty of care to say, then we can't barrack women. Why would you put women at risk then by putting them in the same regiment, as putting them in the same environment, close environment as men?
I think they should get the same punishment. If anything, it's to make a point on equality. Like, even if it was true, even if
the army just playing into the left's hands.
They are, but no, it's nothing to do with the left. It's.
See, here's the thing. Okay, I don't think what she done was sexual
I think
assault.
She should be. I think it was.
Okay, maybe the rubbing.
Well, sexual assault is too strong. I'd say it was sexual harassment, not sexual assault.
Okay. And I definitely think it's true that if it was a man, I think that the punishment would have been more severe.
Yes. So they need to decide what the level of punishment is. Now, it's fair to say, okay, if you do it once, you're going to get disciplined. You're bad girl or boy. She might like being called a bad girl. And then if you do it again, then you go to prison. But I don't think they should have a double standard, because they should appear to be impeccable in terms of their treatment.
Yeah, I think.
But as far as I'm concerned, they're both in the army on the public dime, and they're a bunch of welfare parasites. So fuck them both.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on that harsh note, you have something.
Do you not want to say anything more with it? You said all you need to say.
I have said all I need to say, other than I think things are going crazy, you know. And when I was in the army back when Centurion was a rank, not a tank, there was we just didn't have. Occasionally, you would have a woman who was in the catering corps behind the hot plates there, serving you your breakfast. But there was
like hardcore, but catering.
But there was no serving women until before I left. Women were starting to come into male-dominated environments as officers, And it was adjutants. Usually you get a female adjutant, which is a perfect job for women, really. It's about finding fault with things. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, look at these curtains, they could do a wash. Anyway, I think I'll stop there before I get any more trouble. So yeah, it's a new thing. It's hard. I'm old fashioned that way, and it's like I think you got to make your mind up as well about having women in the military billeted closely with men. And it's fine to go, oh, it shouldn't be an issue. Well,
might be though. Whether you like it or not. Well, I think that women should be allowed to serve in the military provided they're able to reach the same standards as what is expected of men. Whether I think they should or it's a favourable or good job for them.
Do you think it's something morally, if you to say, I mean, you could make a case that any country that voluntarily puts women in the front lines is morally bankrupt.
But why? Because men are more disposable than women and fuck men.
Well, I suppose you could counter that.
But no. I think. I guess I'm sympathetic towards that argument that. Yeah. Well, it's a kind of traditionalist argument, but the thing is, as a libertarian, I'm not. Well, despite the moral, my position morally on whether I think women should be in the front line or not is really irrelevant.
Should anybody be in the front line?
Exactly. Does anyone have it's whether they should have the right to, if they can achieve the same standards of excellence as a man has, and if they can, they're probably likely to be a little bit of a tomboy anyway. So they really, do you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm just not willing to legislate values, and I think that value is one that many people share, including Hitler.
But surely you're legislating values when you go, women must.
No,
serve. I mean, let me tell you. And by the way, here's what's really behind women serving in the front line in the British Army or any other army. I think it's certainly true in the American Army. They believe there to be a lack of women in senior roles in the army, right, at the highest echelons, i.e. generals. There ain't a lot of women, female generals, and a common rebuttal to anybody who wants to women becoming generals is, well, look, you don't have combat experience. A lot of men don't get general positions because they go, you have no combat experience. You've never commanded troops in the field. So I think this is a way of getting women to bypass that kind of argument.
They don't have to.
They say, like, okay, I have served in a combat unit.
They don't have to reach the same standards as men do.
Yeah, and even it's like, even where women are allowed to serve in combat units, they're usually not right on the front line. They're usually not mixing it up with the enemy. So yeah, but anyway, that's a more complicated argument.
Yeah, because but that is exactly as you would have it then, given your traditional values. You don't think they should be in those positions?
Well, I think having to kill people in the most brutal of ways is something that nobody should have to do. And when people do have to do it, it's a job that needs to be done. I think it's a job best suited to young men of fighting age, so 18 to 35, 18 to 40.
But then they have to live with that for the rest of their life.
Yeah,
I'm making you the cuckle doodle dude of the week.
Well, because I say women. Well, I just think this is something slightly obscene about a person who's designed to give life,
to
take it away.
Life. Oh, I didn't realize that.
However, some women are highly adept at doing it. You know, there's been female assassins. Terrorist groups have operated with women who are extremely ruthless. So yeah, there's all that to be said as well. There's probably a whole wider discussion to be had.
I just don't want to promote male disposability personally, because I think, do you know what? I'm not going to say that in the past it was fine that men were made disposable, or let's say there was various benefits and things that men got for being disposable, and less were considered entitled to respect. And so why should we continue to make ourselves disposable when we don't actually get the respect for it?
So next time we have a draft, conscript, let it just be the women who go.
Yeah, let's get some equality, because
why should they get by with it?
Millions of men under the age of 22 died in the First World War that were conscripted into the army.
Yeah. Most of whom couldn't vote.
I'm sure,
either, because they weren't old enough to vote.
I'm sure that they were more privileged than the women who didn't have the vote. Yeah. The ones that died at the age of 16, 17.
Okay, so moving on from that.
So big announcement.
Big news for all.
And it's not just that it's my birthday. The big news is anyone in the States, get thee to New York on the 9th of September. I will be debating.
What's going on?
At the Soho Forum. Gene Epstein of the Soho Forum has been kind enough to invite me to debate. But more than that, I will be debating Andrew Yang, who is running for president in 2020. Andrew Yang has been on Sam Harris's show, which does 500,000 hits. Lord knows. He's been on Ezra Klein's show. I don't know how many hits Ezra Klein's show does, but it must be a lot, because Ezra Klein has interviewed Bill Gates on his show. So there you go. I'm like three degrees of separation from Bill Gates now. So I'm very impressed. I'm very pleased that we got Andrew Yang. He was my suggestion of opponent, but I thought he was too big a fish to agree. No, he lives in Manhattan, so it's not far for him to travel, and he's agreed to debate me. So I'm super excited, and if you can, put the 9th of September in your diary. I'm stoked.
Well, just don't put it in your diary. Go. As well.
Yeah. But more to the point, should add that it's of relevance to today's episode, because he is of the position of robots are creating an apocalypse for poor people. So I'm going to be debating that basically the robots are going to enrich the poor, more or less. He is going to be debating that if we don't do something to stop the robot apocalypse.
Can I suggest you start the debate with Kraftwerk's "We Are the Robots"?
That's pretty funny. I was going to say his name is Andrew Yang, so I will be the yin to his yang in the debate. And I'm really excited. This is going to be awesome. I hope to meet some of you at the event if you're not too far from New York, or you're rich enough to fly all the way from LA.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Oh yeah, there's one more thing. I want to make a plug.
Just one. What are you? Fucking Colombo. just one more thing. My wife loves your show.
If you do not listen to the Be Yourself and Love It podcast, have a listen to the last couple of episodes. They're only about 10 minutes long. A third one's going out today. I know that libertarians have reputation for being a little bit aspy or autistic and not hot on the social skills. I'm doing a series of short podcasts on how to communicate better with strangers and stuff like that, and I'd love your feedback on it. So check the most recent episodes out. They're only 10 minutes long. There's about 3 of them, and let me know what you think. They're good, in my opinion. Until next week.
Don't you go cucking.
Go trucking.